businesses and brands. And as she sets it up, I will segue and bring your attention this way. So, just a brief introduction. I'm not based in this market. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Chestnut Hill Hospital.
All right.
Both sides of my family are from Philadelphia, so very familiar place for me. I'm Shadid Eleazer. Title would be Digital Business and Lifestyle Strategist. What does that all mean? As far as specialties are concerned, specialize in Microsoft SharePoint, their online collaboration platform. So I get to use a lot of different skills from server hardware to social networking, end user adoption training. Speak all across the country at different events, especially in the area of SharePoint. Started,
Yes.
so I can just swap back and forth, or you are my hero. Whatever adult beverages you need later on.
I'll be sure to find you.
I'll find you. Okay,
That's
so
okay, I got a beverage right here.
we swap from here to, where would the connection be? This all right.
Are you good?
Let me see if I can get, all right, let's do this. I can just log into the web and life will be great. I'll be my hero. I just log into the web version of this session. Won't miss a beat. The hardest part of speaking is always remembering your password. It's like my biggest fear of speaking. Okay, so okay. So we're just going to continue on. So Microsoft SharePoint, as I mentioned, do a weekly, how do I connect from PC? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, host a weekly radio segment in Hampton or Norfolk, Virginia, 7 cities, Virginia, called Let's Talk Digital. That is your weekly dose of technology as it impacts the entertainment industry. I have a passion for music and technology and how it impacts everything. So, a lot of great segments, over 150 episodes recorded. So, you can go on YouTube and check out, especially the time capsules of, when iPads released, the thoughts as we move forward. So, WXYC 89.3 down in Chapel Hill, I do a segment called Hip Hop Bites, where I talk about technology's impact on the hip hop industry. And, it's more or less bi-weekly things that go on and just focus on technology as it affects pop culture at large. And my favorite, SiriusXM, every Thursday with Mario Armstrong from the Today Show. I do the Digital Entertainment Report. That's probably my best segment because Mario is a techie as well, and he researches the topics that we go over. The first segment was breaking the news of Spotify, did the U.S. launch, and got on the show and he asked all these great questions. All the on-demand segments are on his site. And I'm an author. We have the SharePoint Community Guide to Understanding Google+, which is basically walking through how thought leaders can use Google Plus to build community, build their businesses and brands, create events such as this using Google Plus. The bottom left is my Behind the Brand series. This gentleman is Felonious Monk. He created a more or less a straightforward, dialogue with the audience. He's over 2.5 million views on YouTube. He's been on Glenn Beck. He is a viral sensation so far. So we're writing a book on how he approaches his brand, how he builds it, and stepping away from his specific example, providing lessons that can apply to all. So that's going to be a book series that I'm going to continue with people that I find interesting in tech and business overall, and just give you the insight. I combine my lessons learned, so on and so forth. And the digital cookbook series is an actual cookbook with my uncle, Chef Carlton Haynes. He's done a whole bunch of things as far as cooking and building his brand, and it's combining old world recipes with gadgets, gizmos, technology apps that'll help you cook better. We're raised in a catering family. I used to work in Philly cheesesteak restaurants when I was young, and he used to own them. So we went all through this process, and we pick a different topic every time. And this is volume 1, and we'll just keep going on from there. Okay, so going to the 5 W's of clout. What is clout? And answer all the basic questions, misconceptions, common myths with clout. Also, with this session, your questions, your feedback, your input drives the session along. Of course, it starts at beginner or who has never heard of clout, on to, okay, I have a brand, it's online, or we may not be online. I may influence people in a different way. I may be a DJ that has certain influence on other entities. How do I leverage clout? How is clout relevant to me? So we can discuss that. I can answer questions. In this particular room, we can say there's over, let's say, 80 years of experience. It would be foolish for me to say that I have more experience than everyone. So let's leverage each other's collective experience to make this the best possible session. So 5 W's of clout. Going to current events. The current events, as I'm doing research for different radio segments, I see different things that come up with clout that have influenced this particular session and why it actually came about. So we'll go into the current events that have happened both now and a recent past that tell me that, okay, clout is here to stay. It's something that, come on in. It's my daddy.
Hi.
That's why I walk the whole campus trying to find you.
So current
Just
events.
starting, perfect timing.
Clout Perks program, of course, Clout's attempt to connect with influencers and different relevant people and their approaches and some of the campaigns that they've run, and how that all comes together, how you can get involved, some of the misconceptions as far as do I have to have a certain clout score, do I have to be social media elite in order to be a part of the Clout Perks program, and we'll go into that as well. Topics pages, going to go into a few clear examples that you can leverage topics pages, and that how larger brands are reaching out to influencers such as yourself with topics pages, how you can use it, and you can ask questions as well. The bold future. I like to make predictions, because predictions, you have to stand by a particular idea, and it's always fun to see if that idea comes true, how close you've come to that actual reality. So let's make a few bold predictions. I may be way off base, I may be on a bullseye. So, and how we all can maximize our usage of clout. I've done a lot of testing, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of testing with different networks, connecting different networks, disconnecting if I post this amount of tweets per day versus if I ask certain questions, using different analytics to come up with a strategy on how to keep your clout score at a certain level, or how to increase it, how to use certain events to raise your clout score, and also how specific brands have created targeted events to raise their clout score in a given night. What if it's, let's say, the MTV Video Music Awards, and I'm a record label, or I'm, a director, a video director? How can I target influencers to make my brand on the night of that event skyrocket from, let's say, 35 to 50, for example? And we'll also cover, what a standard clout score is, how high does my clout score need to be relevant, so on and so forth. Before we begin, do we have any questions? Any questions? Scenarios, comments, concerns? Okay. All right. So, combining this whole approach will lead, any individual, any business, any brand to a healthy clout use, happiness online, more influential, be able to plug into different opportunities that exist. Because if you're building a business or a brand, the main goal is to be open to different opportunities and set things up. It's not enough to have certain social media profiles, but how are you attracting that to your business or brand in order to gain new opportunities, open new doors, set up sponsorships, so on and so forth. And after years of helping different brands build sponsorship models, I find that clout is a very effective way to do so. Okay, so the 5 W's as far as clout is concerned. What is clout? I'm sure any complete newbie, beginners, or anybody who's never heard of clout in the room? Okay, so we all know what clout basically is. Okay, clout is a online service that basically measures your effectiveness as a social media influencer. It's important to note that this social media influence the measurement of it started in 2008. It was a different time, it was a different landscape at that time. And now, based on current news, past and present, we're starting to see the actual relevance of that measurement. So in some ways, it's a score. It provides a score based on your activity. What if I, for example, just taking it offline, if I send you a message, or I ask you, how was your day, or what is the meaning of life? And that makes you go to 3 other people and say, what is the meaning of life? My clout score is based on your ability to go to 3 other people and say, to generate that action. Yes, sir.
So Shane, I come at it from like an SEO perspective. So
Okay.
essentially, clout is the equivalent of page rank for your social signature.
That's a fair way to look at it. And let's take that a step further. Once, because clout is still infantile in its measurement, many people say that clout as a service is flawed. It's in many ways it's incomplete because it doesn't measure incoming traffic to blogs, page rank, so on and so forth. With if I'm a popular blogger, for example, and I may just post links to my social media platforms just to expand the conversation. Clout doesn't necessarily track that particular incoming link, so on and so forth. So, but I see that coming. That's something that is coming down the line. And but your definition is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything, just like Google. I mean, it's not perfect. It takes time for the algorithms to update what you. I'm setting aside whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but the point is that it's always changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore now is going to be different than 6 months from now, and how clout measures what we do and what we say and who we can impact.
And, you know, just keep in mind that when Clout started, it only measured 2 social networks, Facebook and Twitter. Just a few weeks ago, it added on a plethora of different social media platforms. So what happens when they start to track and measure Discuss, for example, where we have different comments on blogs? That changes the game overnight. So, you know, as far as Cloud is concerned, it definitely measures your activity, not necessarily the frequency, not necessarily the quality of content, but the ability to your content on whichever social network that you choose to connect to generate action in your community. So if you have, let's say, 500 followers, but you're able to generate a number of discussions in a specific niche market. For example, one of my key topics that I'm an influencer on is Microsoft SharePoint, which would be considered a niche market. In that particular community, because I'm involved in so many different ways as a speaker, organizer, and so forth, I'm able to have a greater footprint and drive a different response than I would for a wider topic such as social media. So in my particular analysis of myself, I think that my clout score is not necessarily indicative of the number of followers I have. You know, it's what, 1797 or something like that. And but within that community, I'm able to generate a certain footprint. So that's why my score is where it is. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's more about quantity rather than quality.
Well, volume, if I ask, use a dating analogy. If I ask 25 women at a singles bar for their phone number, chances are I'm going to get a higher response than someone who asks one person, one girl who asks one guy. But
Right, but if that's the one person that ends up being your wife, the quality of that interaction is so much higher.
that
And
is true.
that's my issue with cloud,
Right,
just to throw that out.
I think it goes back to, you know, it's kind of like, I look at it from a conversion rate standpoint, you know, from a totally separate area, and that is, you know, to your point, well, if you only reach one client, setting cloud aside for a moment, if you only reach one client, that client is going to basically be the $1 million sale for the year.
Yep.
Right.
You know what? I don't care if my, you know, I don't
Right.
care if that's the person that, you know, I mean, I look at cloud from the standpoint of measuring the ripples in a pond. So how many stones are you going to throw? If you throw one, it's going to be one ripple and it's going to broaden out. However, from a cloud perspective, if you're throwing a couple of different stones, you're going to have multiple ripples and it's going to cause more diffuse, you know, a broader diversity. So therefore, you have the potential to have greater impact.
Good point. Good point. Common clout myths. Of course, that's the Loch Ness Monster. You may believe in the Loch Ness Monster or not, but it's up to you. But we'll go on to the common myths of clout, and from my experience and you know, research of the platform, go into that. So the more networks that you connect, the higher score that you will have. Not necessarily true. In many cases, it's based on the amount of activity that you generate with that given network. If you just have a Twitter account connected to Cloud and you're able to generate a number of retweets, a number of replies, so on and so forth, your clout score would be just as high as someone who has Google+, Tumblr, so on and so forth, Facebook connected. So the more networks you have is not indicative of a higher score. And also on the flip side, adding more networks does not decrease your score. It's all based on activity. Perks are only available to social elite. That's not necessarily true. There's certain promotions that are run based on city, state, or in some cases zip code. You know, more and more you're starting to see the perks program targeted to specific topics. Before, when it first was released, more or less anyone can get involved based on certain criteria, but you don't have to have a cloud score, let's say Mashable, over 80 or some, Chris Brogan, for example, super high cloud score, be at the top of the food chain as far as your specific genre or niche to be able to be available or be eligible for the perks program. And as I mentioned, if you're not if you're not registered to Cloud, you do not have an active account on Cloud, it does not impact me at all. The important thing to note with Cloud, and the reason why I believe that it will become more of a factor in the future, is that if you have a social media profile, you have a Cloud score. So if you never check Cloud, you have never checked Cloud, Cloud is not on your radar, it's not something that is important to you as a professional, someone as an influencer, they need to make a decision on your brand, whether to do business with your brand. They can go to your Cloud score without you knowing, without your knowledge, and make a decision based on that. If your objective is to be a thought leader within certain topics in your area of expertise, and you don't register, let's say, for example, common example is with bloggers. Bloggers who cover news, cover events, so on and so forth. Let's say there's a movie that's going to be released, okay? And maybe you have a blog where you review movies. And in many cases, when there's a DVD release, so on and so forth, the publicist makes the actors of the movie, the director, available for interview. Now, what is starting to happen is, you can look at a topics page and look at who is trending over the past 90 days and see who is trending in the topic area of movies. So if you're a specific blogger and you want to get that exclusive interview, well, one of the criteria that can include you or exclude you is your particular Cloud score. So that is, without your knowing, that can disqualify you or include you. So just because you don't pay attention to it doesn't mean that someone else higher in the food chain, in the fashion industry, it's which is two of my examples of recent news, it's already taking on a huge impact. So, that's something to keep in mind. Number of updates equals a higher score. Just as I mentioned in the previous example, of course, if you put out, the more lines you cast out, the greater chance you have of catching a fish. But it's based on the type of content that you're putting out. And I'm going to give you some key examples in my wrap-up as far as things you can do to not necessarily guarantee a higher score, but things I've tried that have worked for me. So, and Cloud is not a social network. Cloud is a social network in that you, by basic definition, you have social profiles. Everyone has a profile by default on Cloud. You can communicate. You can invite people to Cloud. You can give a +K recommendation saying, hey, I like your influence in a given topic. I think you are the best at tomatoes, planting tomatoes. Could be an actual topic. Gardening. If you're, so I can give a +K and share that recommendation on my favorite social networks that I'm connected to. So based on the social networks you're connected to, you can reach out to people, invite, so on and so forth. So that qualifies it as a social network. Yes, sir.
How did those recommendations figure into your Cloud score?
At this point, according to the Cloud team, they say that it does not.
Okay.
But yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if I'm able to give you a recommendation to say you are an influencer on me, it does have some relevance. But what it does do, if I give you a plus K, you are the best at red iPad cover, design, okay? I give you a plus K in design. You've influenced. Something you've posted has had relevance on me. You can take that, I can take it and say, you have influenced me in design. You can take it and share it with your network. So the more impressions that gives off, that influences people to say, if, Shadi, who has 1,800 followers, says,
So you have to brag about the fact that someone recommended you?
not brag,
Well,
it's
publish it.
it's an option that's available to be shared.
Okay, because I've gotten them, but I haven't shared them, because I just was like, well, that's great, thank you. I thanked the person directly, but I didn't feel the need to
You can thank them like, hey, at Mr. Shadid, thanks so much
Yeah,
for
you're
that.
right.
Let's
do
say.
it publicly.
It's not bragging if it's true.
And that plays also into your topics pages. And also in your profile, it shows up that you're one of my key influencers. So when someone goes to your page and they're looking for, who's the best at, or who's the most influential at this time, those are things that come up, and we'll look into that in the walkthrough. So some of the three key areas that Clout uses to calculate a score, is important to note that a Clout score increases daily, it changes daily based on your activity. That's one thing I don't like. I don't think that influence in general, impact can change day by day, but I don't think that I think influence is more of a long-term thing, and maybe that's something they'll change. I'll say that Cloud is pretty good. They have their feelers out in the community, and they contact a lot of the social media, quote-unquote, elite for feedback and guidance. So, but TrueReach is indicative of your network as far as when you put out a post, who within your network is taking action. Your Clout score is going to be have a greater impact based on, let's say, someone with, if you reach out, you put out a post that a celebrity, I don't know, 200,000 followers, using Twitter as an example, decides to retweet. And that amplification, which is another key area, boosts your Clout score. Yes, sir?
Does Clout have any way of measuring real-world action? An example I'm thinking of is Felicia Day was recently at Comic-Con, and she offhandedly tweeted, wow, I could really use a coffee, and within like 2 minutes, someone else had tweeted, she tweeted again, oh, someone actually brought me a coffee. Like someone she'd never heard of before.
Using that example, if she's at Comic-Con, a huge event, of course, she tweets, I need a coffee. Someone retweets, well, she needs a coffee. A bunch of people retweet, she needs a coffee. Someone else says, what's the nearest coffee shop? Someone else posts a link to Google Maps. That's activity. That's based on her particular tweet. A footprint was, a ripple was created. And yes, that would be something that would be influential. If there's a hashtag of Comic-Con, for example, that may show up under her topics page. So yes, the answer is definitely. Your network is the second way that you basically, that Clout uses to calculate your overall score. What impact are you having on your network? Who is taking your information and carrying on your message, so to speak? And amplification. If you throw a pebble in the water, how big of a ripple does it make? So these are the three areas that make up your daily Clout score. As far as your topics and areas that you influence, that changes weekly. And I think as we continue to move forward, some of Clout's measurements will start to, I think, slow down a bit. Certain areas, I think a week is fine. Day by day is a bit much. And I think it creates unneeded social media attention. You know, if you're using it for business, of course, you're going to schedule certain posts or make sure that certain aspects of your brand are included. But overall, for the regular day in, day out brand especially, you know, certain brands, whether maybe a fashion designer, maybe an artist, maybe certain businesses, may want to tweet based on inspiration. You know, look at this or check this out. And you know, certain things such as weekends, if you work from an office and you take some time off, bring your clout score down dramatically. So let's go into clout and just walk through the profile. Okay, so I'll minimize this. I'm going to sign in. Here's the, you can connect with Twitter or Facebook.
Do you just do that every time?
No, it's just because I'm logging in on the machine.
Yeah, there's no easy way, like, because I get this email sometimes, I click on the link and it takes me to that page. I don't know why it doesn't take me to my account. Does anyone else
Could it be a
find that?
cookie issue?
I'm sorry?
A cookie issue or something like that?
Okay.
Depends on how long you leave your cookies.
So here we have your clout dashboard. As you can see, my clout score is on the decline, baby.
Oh.
Going down.
Mine has gone down ever since I started looking at it. In the last 9 months, and I do the same thing. Like, I'm very active. For the last, is it compared to others?
I've noticed I've actually taken 2 weeks off from social media just because I've been freelancing a lot. And I do see it's just like a plateau that goes, meow.
Do they compare me to others, or is it?
You can.
I mean, is it a bell curve, or because, like I said, I'm not. How can I be less influential in the last 9 months when I've gotten more followers and I'm posting just the amount of the same amount?
And these are counting questions that we all like to.
Look behind the curtain and see what's going on back there.
It's you know, but I will say this: do not. You know, if you're going as a result of this presentation. You may not become a cloud evangelist, but you will think a little bit more about cloud in your day-to-day, or you know, when you see the logo or whatever. But do not check your cloud score daily unless it is your job to manage a brand or a business on specific event days. If they're doing a specific campaign, if it's Super Bowl Sunday, if it's Church Sunday and you're managing a evangelical brand or a church, for example, that's when you want to check the clout score and see what conversations are being measured, so on and so forth. But do not. It's
A waste of time.
It's the start of social media unneeded addiction, because you start to say, well, why is this happening? Why are these things, why?
Why? Because look at it once every 3 months and it keeps going down. That annoys me.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, basic question. Does clout only apply to people, or can a brand have a clout score, an organization?
Yes, it can apply. It applies to social media accounts.
Okay.
So definitely, you know, we're just logged into my particular account, which is of course a personal account. But I could be, if I speak in third person and you know put a logo on the screen, I could be thought of as a brand. So
If you create a list, does that help your score?
yes, it does help because, well, it
Only
helps
others like
not in the creation of the list, it helps in the activity. If I add, you know, a bunch of influential people, just, you know, doing the backdoor way, if I add a bunch of influential people to a list and I say, these are their SharePoint thought leaders, just based on the law of reciprocity, you know, they're going to say, wow, this guy who is also in my field and within my group has added me to this list. I may tweet about it, I may, you know, do a post about it, so on and so forth. And that is what leads, not the list itself, but the action that is generated from it. You had a question, sir, or? You?
Oh, no.
Okay. So definitely, we're in the profile now. So this is go to profile. Okay, so this is our daily. As you can see, I'm on the decline. You know, early September, I was on a rise of 61. You know, I was up there. And we're going down.
Is there any way to see back further than the last couple weeks, like to see historically?
I have not found that yet. Maybe that will come soon, or I think, let's do this. What I think will start to happen in the very near future, maybe by first quarter 2012, is that you'll be able to generate quarterly reports and be able to take this graph and export it to a document, because this particular score has a heavy relevance. So as I mentioned, in 3 ways to, this is your overall score, true reach, you know, my network is growing. The people I influence is definitely growing. And as I mentioned, you can tweet this or, you know, share it. And there'll be more options here as this begins to grow. What discussions am I creating based on this? And that's measured. And these are all separate areas that you can, you know, a la carte look at and say, okay, for certain campaigns, you know, how can I put this together? And what engagement from other influencers. So this, you know, this is the art of getting important people to pay attention to you, you know, and this is another area. So I was good on September 11th.
Oh, there you go.
Then it went around. But, you know, you can look at what you're influential about, and this was the area we discussed earlier as far as who you influence. So, you know, there's different ways to get people involved with that.
So another very basic question,
Yes.
cloud scores out of 100?
Yes, 1 to 100. Okay. With the higher you go, the closer you are to 100 being the more influential you are. So based on what you may tweet about or post or share on your networks, these are the areas that will show up under your particular profile. You can view other people's profiles. So media, what I think in my particular case, I've thought about this, media, I tend to share a lot of links and content in my, I may say, well, what is the meaning of life? And have a post to how to, you know, I don't know, build a better life in 30 days from another blog. So I think that's where media is actually coming from. And you have your recent plus case, so these 3 individuals have said, hey, Shadi has influenced me in this area, and I can, you know, tweet about that, and, you know, you get 5 plus Ks every day that you can give to networks or people within your network. Of course, speakers, Washington, I don't know how that came up, but yes, sir.
Oh, I'm gonna let you finish. I wanted to talk or ask you your thoughts on the way that these topics come up. For example, I use my personal account both as my business account, and then also it's my account. So the types of things I talk about during the week are often very different than the types of things I talk about on the weekends.
Sure.
So I'm influential in advertising, technology, and business, and then I'm also influential in iPads and video games and, you know, things like that. And then I'm influential in eye contact, which is bizarre. I and many of my friends in the industry take a lot of pleasure in going through and finding these random topics that you somehow become influential in. Bands, shows, horseback riding. It's like or a place you've never been. And you know, like you mentioned earlier, there's a lot going on behind the curtain that we'll probably never know about. But I'm curious on your thoughts on kind of how to address that. Like I will go into my account and see plus Ks from people in topics that, I mean, they're clearly just trolling. Like it's just like, oh, eye contact, that's funny, that's kind of creepy, I'm going to give him plus K. So I've got, you know, 10 plus K in eye contact. I just wanted to get your thoughts on kind of how the topics work and how, you know, relevant or useful you see them being.
Well, I think that the most relevant, first of all, your example of eye contact is kind of the opposite way that it, you know, is supposed to work.
Yes.
Where,
Yes, it is.
You know, but as
Or is
far
it?
as the topics themselves, the best way, what I think the main value of Clout at this time actually is the top 3 to 4 topics under your profile basically give you feedback on what people want from you.
Yeah.
What do they respond to? So that's actual feedback. You know, your plus Ks, you know, the people you have the most conversations with generally will give you plus Ks. I mean, this guy, Mark, he's someone that I talk to a lot about clout. So he, you know, of course he's in tune with my post. This guy I'm writing a book with, so he of course is in tune with me. This guy is my, he did a video resume for me. So, you know, these are people that are engaged with your particular subject matter. Yes, sir.
So I have a question for you. Can we do the equivalent of a Google bomb for somebody in here for some random, so let's say that we all have our cloud, and let's say that maybe an eye contact, but for you we'll say purple hats or something like that.
Yes.
So if we all got together and said, hey, we're gonna give her some clout on purple hats,
Mm-hmm.
would that pop up?
Yes.
Only if
Let's
it's
do
already
it.
there.
Let
Only
me
if
give
the
you an
topic's already
example
there.
from the presentation. Let me go back. I mean, let's
You couldn't add a topic to this list. Like you couldn't go, I couldn't go to your account, Shadi, and say you're influential in purple hats, right? The topic already has to be there,
Yes,
and then I
at
have
this
to
point,
give you.
yes.
Okay.
That's nice.
Well, then it would still be
Something
interesting
about
to see
Time
how
Warner or
that,
Hurricanes.
you know, that
Yeah.
topic list.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's what's driving the bus. If they're looking at your, you know, if you, and looking at your profile and say, oh, let's look for the strangest thing possible and give them some clout on that.
That's what my friends do. Yeah. Right.
You got some messed up
Yeah.
friends.
The other thing that I'm finding is every once in a while you'll have clout on something that's absolutely bizarre to you, but then you look at it for a minute and you're like, oh, I figured out why. For a couple, I had clout on helicopters. And it was because I was tweeting about Governor Christie in New Jersey, his helicopter rides, and I was tweeting at him. I didn't have clout in politics, I had clout in helicopters.
Yeah, I
I
have
was sitting there
a,
going, how did I get clout in helicopters in baseball? And all of a sudden it was about his and then I realized it's about his helicopter ride to his kid's baseball game. So I
yeah.
had to remove those. So you have to sit there and curate your clout, you know, account to remove those kinds of things.
That's a really good point, because to Shadid's point, I mean, like, we may not care about clout one way or the other, but if people are looking at our scores, say, what is this person influential and are they worthy of me paying attention, sending millions of dollars for all their knowledge and all this other good stuff, so.
Campaigns, consultants.
Yeah.
Eye contact.
Yeah, I had Time Warner and Hurricanes for some bizarre reason.
You know, so as far as, let's see.
I find it helps me for prospective client research sometimes when I'm headed into a meeting or something like that, and someone who happens to be connected on social networks. This is a stop that I'll make in addition to looking at what they have been posting about or seeing, you know, what they've been talking about or where they've been. I'll stop into their clout page, and if it shows that they're influential about the Braves or cooking or something like that, it's like, okay, well, now I have a couple points of conversation where I might be able to, you know, exactly schmooze them up.
As far as integrated platforms, your LinkedIn profile going from LinkedIn to Clout is a good reference point, you know, to actually work with. Let's go into this.
So on LinkedIn, is it the number of people that are commenting on your status, or the number of recommendations you have, or the number of people that you're linked into? Or all of the
LinkedIn
above?
answers,
Okay.
comments, you know, a number of different. LinkedIn groups is a very good way to actually build up your topics, because of course if you're part of a specific genre, you're going to make posts on that particular subject. So that's a roundabout way of building your.
And then people are going to, you ask a question, people will go back and forth. Okay.
So let's see. I mean, you know, within, let's say, SharePoint community, they do top 25 lists based on, you know, social media influence all the time. If I send you my clout profile and I say, hey, you gotta look at that. You know, this is what other people are saying. So,
Rob, to your point of you research people before you go to see them, do they know they have a cloud account? Like, I've never heard of cloud before I signed up to see.
Some do, because if they have a cloud account, it'll show the little K, and if not, it'll very obviously encourage you to invite them.
that helps you score as well. Inviting others
Yeah.
to clout is a specific action. Clout is a network that clout is a network that tracks itself. So inviting people is another strategy to building your overall score. Let's go into trends quickly. This will answer a few of the questions that we had. A fashion night out, Miami, Florida. What the Ball Harbor shops did was create a clout lounge. And within the clout lounge, in order to enter into this exclusive area to be in the elite, you had to have, this is an actual flyer, you had to have a clout score of 40 or higher.
People love exclusivity. That's what it's playing to, our whole us versus them thing.
I'm like 3 points out.
Crazy.
And their strategy for this was to make sure that only the best, the brightest individuals, or influencers I should say, are invited to partake in this exclusive area. Now, the impact of this was actually a success. Their clout score went from right around 28.
Oh, they wouldn't even go in. They wouldn't even go to their own thing.
Yeah. It went from,
Dude, that's messed up.
it went from right around 28 to about 52 in one night. So, you know,
But
it
how
helped them.
did their score get higher?
Well-
It's not just a flyer.
Well, because
It's offline.
the event, exactly, they
Okay.
invited people that, you know, 40 or higher, who are going to come in and say, I'm at the Ball Harbor Fashion Night Out, and generate
But
conversation.
their Twitter name isn't anywhere on here, so it's just mentioning the name of the store.
Well, this is just the flyer itself, you know.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this
Fashion
is
Night Out is also a key area that, yes.
so this is kind of a good example, because a lot of the people tweeting about this might not have been positive about it. They could have been tweeting, "Oh, can you believe this stupid idea?" But so what I'm wondering is, does clout have a way, or do you think they're going to add a way to start measuring
Doesn't
emotion?
measure positive, all attention is good attention.
Okay.
from a clout score standpoint.
Do you think they might start, just because I know that there's a big industry now popping up around the idea of measuring the emotional value of different tweets, whether they're positive or negative?
Yes, that will be an area that definitely will come into play as the analytics mature. At
Right.
this point, they're just happy to, hey, we have Google Plus. this is where we are right now. So, you know, in another example, Spotify launched for the U.S. release of Spotify, which of course was highly anticipated.
That was fun.
The Spotify launched a perks program which gave key influencers a free account to Spotify, whereas everyone else had a long waiting list to get on. It was, you know, huge anticipation, but Spotify went with clout in order to make that exclusive to certain influencers. And at Fashion Week, now known as Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, we had clout. The clout analyst did a unique study of the most influential fashion designers. Of course, at Fashion Week, you have hundreds of designers bringing their clothes down the runway, their models, so on and so forth. They did a specific study on the impact as soon as Karl Lagerfeld's brand hit the runway, what YouTube comments, what tweets, what retweets, and they tracked it as the brand hit the runway. And they published an actual list, the top 10 most influential designers. Of course, Project Runway came in #1. This is the top 5. So, that was something that in the fashion industry is already taking hold. This is Fashion Week, which is one of the biggest events in the fashion industry, and they're tracking social activity and social impact from the moment someone hits the runway. Fashion Night Out down in Miami has the exclusive Clout Lounge. It's taking over. So maximizing cloud usage, I found that, using